Good afternoon, everyone. Um, I call the special meeting of the Bellflower City Council on Monday, August 10, 2026 at 4:02 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Present.
Councilmember Dutton,
Here.
Councilmember Coops,
Here.
Councilmember Morse,
Here.
Mayor Santinez.
Here. There's no request to appear remotely. Public comments. Madam Clerk.
Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3A, the public may address the City Council on matters listed on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the City Council, whether attending in person or remotely, should be recognized by the mayor before speaking. Speakers may state their name for the record. In-person speakers should come to the podium, and remote participants may request to speak using the procedures described in this agenda. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the City Council unless adjusted by the mayor to facilitate the orderly conduct of the meeting. In-person participants will be recognized first for public comments. For remote participants, if you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand feature. If by computer, it appears under the Participants tab. If by mobile app, it will appear under the More button at the bottom right-hand corner. Or if by telephone, press *9 to raise your hand. You'll be called upon in the order received and your microphone enabled so that you may provide your comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this item? Okay. Is there anyone participating remotely?
Not at this time, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Moving on. Item 5A, Mr. Smoot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to hand this off to Jim. He's going to move as quickly as we can to go through this, but there's a lot of information for you guys, so bear with us.
All right, Mr. DeLonga, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Smoot. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. We are back to do some follow-up from our initial economic development workshop back in February. This afternoon, I'm going to review the big picture takeaways and directives from the February workshop. I'll briefly describe to you some of the background about how we got here. We'll then jump into the statistics and metrics of our small business programs. Follow that up with some information on the corridor studies. Then we'll do a quick update on our department reorganization. And then before I open it up for discussion, we'll go into the research we've done on the economic development and community development corporations. So let's go to the workshop takeaways and directives. For the big picture takeaways, it was clear that business attraction and development attraction is the main priority of the City Council. The small business and entrepreneurial programs are good, positive programs. We should continue our HUD and successor housing programs supporting economic development efforts where possible. And we should begin researching the establishment of an economic development corporation. Drilling down from those big picture takeaways, the directives are as follows. To continue looking at and identifying potential strategic real property acquisitions. To not lose focus on downtown Bellflower to maintain the momentum built up over the years. Where appropriate, use housing as an economic development driver. The small business assistance and entrepreneurial programs are good, but council wanted to see metrics and stats on the programs. 2, if needed, steer where we put our efforts with the programs based on enrollment and results. Look into having commercial corridor studies conducted to identify feasible development opportunities throughout the city. And finally, from the strategic plan efforts, begin researching that economic development corporation or community development corporation. And we're going to touch on a bunch of these things as we get deeper into the presentation. So how'd we get here? To see that, I'm going to take you back in time a little bit. Way back in the spring of 2021, staff presented the results and recommendations of the Downtown Small-Scale Artisan Manufacturing Study. Looking at that now, 5 years or so down the road, I'm going to ask you to substitute economic development for small-scale manufacturing in the title of that study. And why, you may ask, because this was really, turns out to be a downtown economic development study in which small-scale manufacturing was a small component of the study. And intentionally or unintentionally, we have implemented a number of the specific recommendations of this study, some with limited or no success and several with great success. The 5 categories of broad recommendations of the study are shown on the slide. So now let's take a look at some of the specific recommendations that came out of that study. Here are actually some of the recommendations from the study that we've already implemented. We've moved the farmers market downtown. We've implemented small business and entrepreneurial training programs. We adjusted the zoning for artisan manufacturing and serving alcohol in the downtown. We're looking at increasing housing density in the downtown and continue city ownership of key parcels. But that's not all. There are also a number of those recommendations that are actually in the works. Look at ways to use public spaces more effectively for community events. Address obsolete zoning, which can range from simply updating permitted, conditional, and unpermitted uses to revamping the design development zone and the West Artesia specific plan. Promote city support of local businesses and the city's economic development success stories. Extend the downtown streetscape to the freeway, continuing that placemaking effort the city started in the area bounded by Flower and Main Street. And then there's a city commitment to spend local initiative. Interestingly, several of the recommendations I presented also show up in our strategic plan. So now we kind of see where we've been and how we got here. Let's take a look at the stats and metrics the City Council requested on the business assistance plan and the entrepreneurial programs. Now, before I get into these stats, please remember that many of our efforts, including both the business assistance plan and the entrepreneurial programs, are often trial and error. Programs don't always work as intended, and so we discontinue them or make program adjustments. We've done this in the past with the gift card programs that we tried to implement during COVID and coming out of COVID, and you'll see we've done this with one of the entrepreneurial programs as well. I also want to acknowledge Anika for doing a great job of compiling the history and statistics of all these programs. It wasn't easy pulling all those numbers from all the different sources that we had to get them from. So let's start with the business assistance plan. So this was created in 2017 and has been updated a few times since. Initially, the focus was on downtown, and in one of the recent updates, City Council expanded most of the programs to be available citywide. Since 2017, 12 applications have been approved and only one didn't move forward. This chart shows which chapters of what we call the BAP are being used. There's been 16 loans total. The facade improvement forgivable loan makes up about 44% of all the loans that we have. This fiscal year, we're on the verge of releasing a CDBG-funded new small business grant for up to $25,000 that Council approved as part of the annual action plan. We are finalizing the docs for that and already have a couple good candidates for this new program. It features a grant for new brick and mortar businesses, has a little more flexibility in the use of the funds. However, if it is used for any construction activities, it will require prevailing wage since they are federal funds. We'll be returning with updates to the city-funded business assistance plan in the near future. Next up are our, try to say that a few times fast, our entrepreneurial programs. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, the impetus behind the city's entrepreneurial efforts sprouted from the recommendations of the Downtown Small-Scale Manufacturing Study that we completed in 2021. Emprendedores started in 2022. We started Maker to Market in 2024. Spring of 2025 saw the start of the Bellflower Entrepreneurial Academy. And 37 Oaks online retail courses started in 2022 and was discontinued in 2024 for low enrollment and a low completion rate. The city offered Emprendedores, shown in dark blue on the chart, twice a year from 2022 to 2024, and then only offered it in the fall moving forward. The spring sessions since 2025 shifted to English, with the Bellflower Entrepreneurial Academy shown in green, and that's the English version of Emprendedores. 37 Oaks in orange on the chart seemed to struggle from the onset. Interest declined, and of the 26 participants that registered, only 10 fully completed all the modules and graduated. 37 Oaks was replaced with Maker to Market, shown in light blue, which is a partnership with the Long Beach City College SBDC office. Iron Fire Workspaces, the City of Bellflower, and the Bellflower Farmers Market. And this assists entrepreneurs to be better pop-up vendors and potentially participate in the Bellflower Farmers Market. Here's a quick summary of the entrepreneurial programs. Emprendedores, we've had 7 cohorts so far, averaging 24 participants. In 2025, we shifted it to once per year in the fall, as I mentioned earlier, to make room for the Bellflower Entrepreneurial Academy. Both of these efforts have a 30-seat maximum for their seating capacity. 37 Oaks, even though that was only 2 years in duration and didn't have a whole lot of people in it, some noted businesses that did graduate from there included Gretel & Company, Cassie Rock Skincare, and La Paloma Blanca, which is also a graduate of Emprendedores. These businesses were established and looking to scale up. Cassie Rock scaled up from doing pop-ups and farmers markets to occupying one of the kiosks. The Bellflower Entrepreneurial Academy has hosted only 2 cohorts and no new brick and mortar businesses as of yet. In the 2 cohorts, thus, it's averaged about 26 applicants. Maker to Market, again, this program focuses on assisting craft and small vendors to sell at farmers markets, night markets, and pop-up events. And it welcomes people in the earliest stages of entrepreneurship, and it's steered toward everyday people who are interested in taking a hobby or skill to public market audience. Out of 49 participants, 24 have filed business licenses, and at least 14 are continuing their education with Small Business Development Center advisors. This program is also intended, as I mentioned earlier, to act as a training ground to fill vendors at the farmers market in Town Center Plaza. Yes.
In the Emprendedores program, we have one brick and mortar that came out of that, right? The embroidery trends.
We do. I'm coming up in the next slide.
Okay.
We have some more info on that too.
Okay.
Yep. Sure. And with 7 cohorts with Emprendedores in 5 years, we have we have a lot more history and a lot more data to go with on Emprendedores where we're at. So they've had 165 graduates. 80 of those have opened businesses. Now, granted, they may not all be in Bellflower, but 80 of them have opened businesses. 47 are still in business as of January of 2026. 42 businesses have opened in Bellflower, and that includes both home-based and brick-and-mortar businesses, as well as a number of existing businesses whose operators went through the program. You can see, Mayor, that on the right side of the slide, you can see the brick-and-mortar businesses in Bellflower, and some of those, I think with asterisks, are established businesses already whose operators came to Emprendedores just to get better educated on how to run their business and be successful. So with that, we'll move on to the corridor studies. You asked us to look at our commercial corridors, and in response, we've done some research, and with some confirmation and direction from council today, we are ready to move forward. And before I get into the scope and locations, please remember that this is not an immediate thing. This is a visioning for the long term. These studies take some time and are forward-looking and will be done in collaboration with the planning department. The proposed scope of the studies is 1, review existing conditions, 2, examine realistic development potential and economics, and 3, provide recommendations. As for the locations, council originally suggested Artesia Boulevard, Lakewood Boulevard, Woodruff Avenue, and Rosecrans Avenue. And after reviewing the corridors, staff recommends shifting gears slightly and conducting these studies in bite-sized pieces, adjusting the choice of corridors to better address the city's commercial areas. Staff is recommending studying Artesia Boulevard, Lakewood Boulevard, and Alondra Boulevard. And rather than studying Woodruff Avenue, key commercial intersections can be addressed that are not parts of the main corridors. The first bite-sized corridor study being recommended is Artesia Boulevard from the west city boundary to Bellflower Boulevard. Staff is recommending this as a starting point because a land use study for Artesia Boulevard was conducted in June 2004. I don't know if any of you remember that land use study. That may have been a part of that one. And although that was 22 years ago, I know that was a while ago, after reviewing the study, the land uses have predominantly remained the same. This study will give the consultant that ultimately is doing that work a great base to work from and a bit of a head start on the overall study. We have a request for proposals packet drafted and firms identified for this. With your permission and direction today, we'll make the necessary adjustments, if any, and work towards releasing the RFP within the next 60 days or so. And as you are aware, through the strategic plan process and city budget, we've reorganized the Economic Development Department to reflect the council's economic development priorities. We've been adjusting roles and mentoring and training in these new roles. And the last piece of the reorganization puzzle was filling the additional economic development specialist position for the fiscal year 26-27. Changing the title of this position to economic development specialist served us well. The recruitment saw a large jump in economic development professionals apply, and as a result, we were able to fill our position, hiring Jenny Benitez, who is sitting out in the audience here, taking all of this in. So she's been a great addition so far, been working with us for about a month. And finally, from the strategic plan effort, there's been discussions around beginning the formation of some type of economic development corporation or a community development corporation to create extra economic development tools and attract public and private investment. So we've prepared some information for you to consider. Let's start with the Economic Development Corporation, or EDC. Business development is the core activity of an EDC, taking the form of real estate development, business recruitment and attraction, downtown revitalization, and industrial development. EDCs are often regional organizations affiliated with and funded in great part by city governments or government. Housing development can be done through an EDC, but is not its core activity. These are some examples of EDCs from the state level down to the city level. You'll probably recognize our favorite LA EDC as one of the larger and more familiar EDC examples that we have familiarity with. Community development corporations, or CDCs, first emerged in California during the mid-1960s. These tend to be affordable housing and neighborhood-centric, with projects focused on affordable and workforce housing and social services. These are independent nonprofits and receive their major funding from grants, tax credits, CDBG and home funds, as well as philanthropy. Here are some examples of CDCs having their headquarters here in Bellflower, and having worked with them in the past, most of us here are familiar with Habitat for Humanity of Greater Los Angeles. This diagram provides a visual comparison of the two types of organizations, their differences, and where they overlap. Given the flexibility and goals the council wants to achieve with economic development going forward, staff is recommending the Economic Development Corporation, or EDC, as the most appropriate mechanism for Bellflower, and with your concurrence, this is the direction we'll follow. Now, this slide provides some basic information on the formation of an EDC. Setting it up, drafting the required documents, and going through the approvals typically takes several months. To get this process moving, staff is recommending the City Council form an advisory committee to address the fine details and overall planning of setting up an EDC. That concludes my update, and I'd like to open up the floor for discussion.
So, Mr. Mayor, that was a heck of a lot of information we tried to get through rather
I know.
quickly, knowing this is somewhat of a follow-up conversation to, a lot of stuff you've already talked about. But the idea here today is we wanted to give you some meat to talk through in the direction you've given, Jim, and then knowing we've talked through these two options in the last one, start to talk through which of those you prefer and how we carry that forward, and then, how we can work with perhaps a subcommittee of the council to establish whichever of those you'd like to look at. So with that, we can open it up to your discussion.
All right, very good. First of all, Jim, thank you so much for your very comprehensive report. I just have a couple of clarification. You mentioned about fantasy cakes and then the Franks. They give us back the money. I don't like that, honestly. I want them to succeed. Okay. So on the flip side, can you tell us any success story you can share with us about the assistance program?
Well,
What did they accomplish out of it?
I wouldn't necessarily discount Fantasy Cakes as not being a success. They did well and they sold their business. And although the new buyer didn't do as well as the original owners did, they
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
Because we gave it to the first owner.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
they provided, and part of the rules of the program is that if you sell the business or stop running the business at any point during that, you pay back what hasn't been forgiven. So they fulfilled their requirements of the program. So they were a great success story. Another one would be the Nest. Even though they've changed and they closed down the one on Alondra, they used almost all the chapters that we had available to them at the time when they went through that during COVID. So that's another success story. They're going strong. They're on Walnut and Bellflower Boulevard.
So the bottom line is it really helped them to
Absolutely.
be successful.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. That's good to know. In the corridor study, I like the idea of taking it into small pieces, but I don't want to lose track of the big picture. So, what will it take? How long will it take to kind of finish the first bite of the apple, so to speak?
Well, it'll probably take us a few months to get the RFP through the process.
No, from start to finish.
From start to finish, from
Yeah.
RFP on for all of those corridors.
No, just for the first one.
For the first one,
Yeah.
we're probably talking about 12 months.
12 months. Okay. And after that, what is your recommendation?
Our recommendation would then be to go incrementally. We'll do Artesia, then potentially Lakewood, then Alondra, and then look at those intersection nodes that are commercial nodes that are maybe between the residential streets, like Woodruff is primarily residential, but it has a few commercial nodes that we can study and look at.
So using the first study as a test, as a model, so it will take about 4 years to finish this,
Well,
roughly?
That's our guess. We'll see when we put it out to RFP to see how long they will actually take to do this work. Once we know how long it'll take, we can give you a better estimate. Once the consultants weigh in on how long it'll take to do that analysis.
Okay, all right, good. Now, on the Economic Development Corporation, I don't want to use LAEDC as an example. Okay, so of all the EDCs that you studied, which one is comparable to Bellflower?
The issue there is that there's not a lot of them because they
lot,
tend
okay.
to be regional and county-wides, like the LAEDC, or there's one that Carl might be familiar with, the Santa Clarita Valley EDC. It's made up of it's multiple organizations all in one. So one of the most recent ones is Glendale. They had it for a little while, but they dissolved it. Anaheim has one, but it is run primarily through their Chamber of Commerce, which they have a pretty strong Chamber of Commerce in Anaheim. So we're pretty unique in that we are one city doing one EDC at this point in time. So it's kind of a trailblazer type of thing for us.
So of the examples that you gave, what kind of success did they get out of it?
That's the big question. Glendale discontinued their EDC because they didn't see any need for it. The city was doing the same thing the city would have done anyway.
So it's kind of, it doesn't sound promising to me. I mean,
Right.
If you to start that way, I want to see some kind of concrete examples of, okay, a city form or even a county form and EDC, and this is what they accomplished.
Well, LAEDC is a
Well, but
county-formed
that's-
EDC.
It's so big, though. It's hard to compare Bellflower to LAEDC.
It is,
Yeah,
but
so-
it's hard to compare Bellflower to almost any of these EDCs because they are larger regional organizations. Would that
Mr.
be
Mayor,
accurate?
I might offer you this.
Yeah.
So there aren't a lot of these economic development corporations, and where there are, they tend to be regional things because they tend to be larger scale. However, where they have been done on a smaller scale, Glendale as an example, although theirs is dissolved, it's because that city is doing something differently perhaps than that region might be. In Bellflower, you all do economic development differently than a lot of the agencies around you. You do it differently than Paramount does it, than Lakewood does it, than Cerritos does it. In other words, you are different than the region that you might otherwise operate in. For example, let's say the COG wanted to come through and say, for the gateway cities, we're going to do an economic development corporation. Well, we operate in Bellflower very differently than they might in some of those other COG agencies in a lot of different ways across the board. So for us to do it independently makes some sense because we do economic development differently than other agencies do. So we are kind of a unique beast. This would be something that would be sort of trailblazing, as Jim put it, but because we do economic development differently, this is another way we can do that, to try. Another tool that we can have in our toolbox.
Can we find out at least what Glendale accomplished out of it, or lessons learned?
Specific projects,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, or lessons learned,
Sure.
so we don't make the same mistakes again.
Certainly. I mean, definitely there would be some overlaps between this type of corporation, being a 501c3 or 4, I forget which it was, C3 for an economic development corporation. There would be some overlaps with what the city is doing. And we can, I would expect that if you set this up, there is going to be a working relationship between this entity and the city and our economic development team. That's going to be a intricate and working relationship on an ongoing basis, I would expect. Because there's going to be overlap. We have business assistance programs that they might have similar programs or supplemental programs to, but there's probably also things that a corporation can do, even if it's just to go out into the world and say, hey, we are a quote-unquote independent entity from the city, and we operate as a separate entity, and we can take donations. LAEDC can take donations and put those in. Private sector investment and donation into their corporation for their purposes that isn't necessarily associated with the government
Right.
per se.
They can do fundraising.
They can
for
do
example.
fundraising
Yeah, exactly.
as an example. So the corporation just gives a little bit of expansion on what the city might otherwise be able to do, but somewhat independently. So yeah, I mean, certainly if you want specific examples of projects that came out of Glendale's or
Yeah, I
Santa
just wanna
Clarita
get this-
Valleys or
something
things like that.
something that's similar to Bellflower that we can get some lessons from.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is finding ones that would be specifically similar to a small agency like Bellflower, but we can find you specific projects or
But I'm sure
programs
they
that they
exist,
do.
though. I'm sure that there's some somewhere in California or other states.
There are
Someone's
certainly,
done this.
the Economic Development Corporation model is, I would suggest, probably more popular outside of California than
Right,
it is
right.
in California. But we tried to keep it as local as we could to find examples for you, most of which happen to be regional type examples. Although the East LA one, I believe, is probably a smaller scale, more neighborhood based. Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. But that's I believe was a community development, was it not, Jim? Economic development in El Segundo is a small agency,
Yeah,
but
we can look at
again,
that. Okay. I
perhaps
think
a
that's more
different
comparable,
economy.
I think, to Bellflower. Yeah.
We'll look
and
at the
also-
Anaheim one as
And
well.
also, you can look at LADC and then kind of scale it down
Okay.
to the size of Bellflower. What are the lessons that can be applicable that they learned to Bellflower? Okay, any question of Jim or city manager?
Yeah,
Oh,
or, go ahead.
Ray?
Can the EDC help start a business improvement district?
It's an interesting question, actually. We've had some conversations of late about some efforts to do that. And when I say it can supplement the efforts of the city, I mean, you all are here for it. You made some attempts to start a business improvement district within our downtown area, sort of driven by the city. And when the city comes out and says, hey, we'd like to do this and we'd like you to participate in this, sometimes the reaction can be, I'm from the government and I'm here to help type reaction, which isn't necessarily positive. But a third-party entity that is
I
a
looked at it as-
partnership, yeah, absolutely.
Looking at it
that's
as the
something they can
horsepower
take in.
behind the entity of the economic corporation portion of it. And then people look at it, it's not the city, and you have that, you have some little bit of staff in there, they can focus on something like that to help nurture it, because we know what happened when we took stabs at it before.
Absolutely. The city becomes one voice.
It's interesting, the tool, and I think I was sharing with you some other tools that I thought about earlier. I'd bring those up later or whatever, but okay, that's all. That was just my question that just popped in my brain.
Okay, all right.
That was all I had.
Councilman Morse?
So as you establish this, you would be establishing an independent corporation. Very similar to a chamber, although in this instance, because we have an existing chamber, I would expect that they would be working. Let's say, for instance, the Economic Development Corporation did ultimately, they were successful in setting up a business improvement district. Well, the Chamber of Commerce is obviously part of our downtown, but they're more broad. So they're going to participate in those things. There is going to be that working relationship, just like we have a working relationship, even though we're independent organizations. This would be no different. It's just a third-party organization. Sister Cities is a good example.
No, independent. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple questions. First one's for legal. What would be the governing body of this, and what accountability would we have as the entity establishing it?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the governing body is up to you. Frequently, at least at the outset, when these things are spun off, it's the city council that acts as the board of directors, but you can have, it's really a policy call in terms of how many directors you want, who do you want to have sit on the board, whatever it might be. So that's really a policy choice that you as a body need to decide.
And from a legal separation, right, the fact that it could receive donations and contributions and so forth and do certain things that we necessarily as a city couldn't do, what is that implication for us if we are the governing board members, just kind of like how with the successor agency?
Yeah, it's a completely independent corporation, so there would be no risk associated with the city, even though the city council members were sitting as directors on that particular board. It would still be a separate legal entity. It's a corporation, and so it would be completely separate from the city. And as we do with other types of spin-offs, we would have an operating agreement between the two entities, which would definitely reflect that independence, which would require, amongst other things, defense and indemnification by the corporation to the city.
And this is part of your question is spot on. This is exactly why one of Jim's recommendations is that we set up a subcommittee, because those are the types of questions that we as staff can't make on your behalf. I mean, we can, guide you through the process, but having a subcommittee of the council to help us work through those types of questions before we bring you, articles of incorporation and, the operating agreement, all the necessary pieces, having a subcommittee to work through that with us would be incredibly helpful for our side, whichever type of corporation you wanted to set up.
I mean, I'm leaning towards the EDC right off the bat. But then my next question, would the EDC be able to join the COG Housing Trust?
Without knowing the specifics of the COGS Housing Trust, I would say, presuming they allow independent organizations like that to enter that is certainly something that I could see the EDC wanting to explore. Because a piece of this is housing. Find
out from from the COGS perspective, if that would be possible?
Certainly. It's a great question.
In the future. And then one more question on the EDC. One thing that I'm not seeing, and I think that's something that is important, I think we've all been out of town or we've all seen commercials from like cities or governments, cities basically, recruiting or promoting their jurisdiction, right? Whether it's Vegas, whether it's the Napa Valley or some kind of entity that's basically promoting foot traffic into their city. I know Tulare does it as well. And Visalia, they do that kind of marketing. The city does marketing for its businesses, basically. I think that's something that we should look into. Personally, I think I hear many times of people who haven't visited Bellflower in a long time, and they talk about the olden days or something like that, but then they happen to drive by the downtown, and they're like, wow, you guys have done some tremendous work. It's truly changed, and it's in the right direction, and so forth. We get a lot of that, but I think people don't know. They don't know what they don't know about what the work we've done, and I think we have to help tell the story. And a lot of our mom and pop restaurants, they don't have the capacity to do that. They're busy making the food, they're busy making the drinks and so forth. You know what I mean? So I think we should look into that, and whether that falls in the EDC or if it's city driven, that's a whole nother conversation. But I think as you're exploring this path, that's something I wanted to drop in there.
That was actually, council member, we actually have that. And
did I miss it?
No, well, it's one of those things that we're working towards.
Okay.
Let me get back here. And
is it something I've said before?
Nope. This was new. This was a new one that you've said. But let me get back to my the slide here.
I know I harp about marketing for Parks and Rec, and they've done it. So
So here on this slide, one of the things that's in the works, promote city-supported local businesses, tell our story and promote successes. I think that's part of it, is part of what you're saying.
that's exactly what I'm
And, you know,
saying.
it's a lot of times those bigger cities like Las Vegas, like Anaheim, they have travel improvement districts,
Right.
tourism improvement districts that do a lot of that for them. But this can be one of those roles that the EDC and the city can take on together.
And I think it's a low-hanging fruit.
And again, as we're saying that, if it's the city of Bellflower coming out and saying, look how great we are, that's one thing. But if, you know, Tourism Las Vegas comes out and says, come to Las Vegas, here's the things, and they have a whole website dedicated to, you know, deals and programs in Las Vegas, it's not necessarily the city government saying it,
Right.
although there could be a partnership there, certainly. Another example under what you said is an economic development corporation can highlight and promote specific businesses or business owners or industries within the city that we sometimes have some limitations as to what we can do as the city government. This independent entity could do those things.
Right. And I think those are some of the key things that we should highlight, whether, you know, if it's EDC or the other agencies that we want to look at, even those little things would be beneficial in helping our smaller businesses succeed. It's transitioning away from the EDC and switching into the corridor section. Can you elaborate for us a little bit further as to what will be evaluated? Are we looking at not only from a land use perspective, but are we looking at traffic? Are we looking at the layout of the roads, the improvements? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yes, all of those things. The idea would be to look at those existing conditions, the sizes of the parcels, the orientation of the parcels, the ownerships of the parcels, and look at that in relation to what are the real potential developments that can occur there, and can they occur, is that development economically feasible? How difficult will it be? Because if you have a bunch of small little parcels, what do you need to do to get modern development out of those parcels? You got to assemble them, and is that economically feasible? So these studies will take all of that into account and make those recommendations to us.
Very good. Will some of that include public road improvement or public infrastructure improvements?
Yeah,
Possibly?
take
Right, that'll be considered as well.
I mean, although it's been a long-term process within your downtown, what you've done, I mean, when we started this conversation, we started it with where you've been successful in Bellflower is you've set out a plan and then over time implemented that plan, and some of it's successful, some of it's not. But at the end of the day, something good comes out of it. The downtown is a perfect example of that. You didn't just say, hey, we want to build the economy of downtown Bellflower.
Right.
You looked at all those pieces. What's the traffic flow patterns? What's the business mix in the downtown? What are the existing parcels? How can the city participate in that? What do the crosswalks look like? Do we need to change the lights and the actual light poles to beautify the area? All of that became a factor. What you were doing without really even potentially knowing you were doing it was effectively a corridor study.
Mm-hmm.
Where we've talked about it thus far in this context is very big picture. We want to broaden that citywide. Our recommendation to you is instead of looking at that elephant citywide, we take it in small bites into some of those small corridors.
Which is what we
So-
did with the downtown.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. I got no further questions for now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Coops?
Yeah, I'm going to throw a little water on the parade here because I'm a retailer at heart, and I know how hard it is to start, maintain, and continue to be in business. If you look at our Bellflower Boulevard, I'm just going to start. The easiest place is at the corner of Main and Bellflower Boulevard. And we've got that beautiful new building there, and our concern was, are we going to get occupied? And it's been quite some time now, and it really hasn't never been full, or even, they're moving people around, that sounds like, but I'm sure he's disappointed, as we are. That was my concern. We build this thing, it's there empty, and it has been empty. We were going to go next door, and we remember we got that $800,000 bid to rehab the exteriors of the businesses on the end of the boulevard. And for whatever reason, that's dead on arrival. We've never done, that's been
Peter just
at
walked
least a
in.
year, but we've never done the improvements like we expected to do. But we're going to try to work with something at a lesser value. Am I wrong in thinking that? How did we leave that?
Jim, do you have an update on those facade, where that's at?
We were going to work with Public Works to come up with some costs to have our teams go out there and put some paint and signage. Well, we would do the signage. Public Works would look at doing some paint, and it just was on it's a kind of a back burner project, and we just haven't gotten that up to a high priority.
But these are things that the public sees. Now let's keep on going as we go up Bellflower Boulevard. I'm going to give a B+, A- to the Steelcraft. It has had some bumps and stuff, but it really showed some potential, especially during the soccer games, World Cup. I mean,
Yeah.
that really brought people in. When you come to Bellflower and use the merchants along Main Street, along Bellflower Boulevard, from Oak on, especially, and we've always hoped for a parking problem, and we've got one. Now what's happened is our big building that with the 91 units in it, the folks that live there, they don't necessarily use their parking. They use the retail parking behind the businesses. Many times if I go in there, there's no, behind Bo's, there's no place to park. That's a good thing. End up parking behind the fire museum in order to get to where you want to go. So we've got to work, and so I'm fearful when we look at the potentials of having more housing on the boulevard. We got to figure out how that works, because the symbiotic relationship is not correct. We have, if you go up to corner of Oak and Bellflower Boulevard, we had the girl there with the dress shops, occupied 2 businesses. She's folded her tent and says for lease. That's, you know what I'm talking about. Continue up, we'll go to Flower Street. We've got the west and southwest corner. Again, unoccupied. It was a rest shop, and next door, unoccupied. And I've checked on it. The rents that he's asking for that place don't make it viable to anybody have a business there. You know, so do we subsidize rent or something? Because that's been empty a long time. Go across the street, we had the vegan donut guy on the across the street on the corner of Bellflower and Flower. I thought he was doing well, but all of a sudden, it's evaporated. And it's on the,
Post race.
Posters.
I don't think they're open anymore.
Southwest.
Right.
They're open for special events.
Okay.
They do special. I mean, I think that was more of a professional decision.
Correct, and I don't know if they're even doing that now. Went by and looked inside, and
Oh,
they've got a lot of different, so
No,
I don't know
and-
what's
and
going
that's why
on
I'm,
there.
I'm kind of, the frailties of the boulevard is what I'm trying to point out.
Yeah, no, you have a good point, but I think that discussion is for.
Right, now, whatever,
Realize that.
right, but whatever right now, I think our main focus is trying to set up another committee, or lack of a corporation, to be able to remedy these things that I'm pointing out. And I'm all for it. And I think Victor brings a good point as well. How are we going to be composed? Is it going to be all of us, 2 of us, 3 of us? Do we have outside staff on it? Do you have a consultant on it? I mean, there's lots of moving pieces on that. And then don't forget Franck's. We had a wonderful Franck's there for years, and that was killed by COVID. I can't blame anybody on that. It was a great operator. And and I'm a little confused because I don't want to talk about what we do in closed session, but when we had our Elizabeth go out and help and evaluate the nest, she was not very positive about their success. But apparently they've cured whatever ailments they have, because now we talk about it in the success. But you remember what we discussed there? It was a big hill to climb. So the jury's out on the nest. Maybe they've turned a corner. The Cuban guy, I don't know what he's up to over at the Franck's, you know. But we have so many things that we are right on the cusp of using, and they're there a year or 2, and then they're gone. So whatever we develop has got to be for the long term. Am I making?
Well,
Right. Right. No, I get it. Right. That's what's happening. My mother's COVID.
It's a good thing that you retired and
Well,
closed your
thank you.
doors
Yeah,
because
like I had a
you'd have a
crystal
rude
ball.
awakening of
No,
what
but-
these business people
Well,
are going through.
let me just
I've
add-
walked the walk. and
Right,
still
I
am.
understand, but
Let me
how,
just add about COVID. For example, let's say you're talking about the commercial space in front of Edgeway. Remember?
Correct.
It was the movie theater. And
Right.
look at what happened because of
but
COVID.
COVID killed that.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a prime example of that.
But and then we conditioned it that he could do this with the assurance that that would be successful. Nothing.
I'll acknowledge though that they have brought in a very successful Pilates or yoga or something studio because that thing is packed.
No, and I guess he's going to move that upstairs so
They're
they get
long
more
lines.
exercise.
I mean,
They're long lines.
even at 5 a.m.
and the
Yeah.
and the parking structures actually gets full now. So I'll acknowledge that one. The dentist place, I haven't switched dentists yet, but I'll give it a shot. We'll see.
Mr. Mayor, if I might
Yes.
offer, when you all started looking at the downtown, 25 plus years ago, and your predecessors started looking at the downtown area, the big focus was we want to attract the smaller retail that works within our downtown. Here we are 25, 30 years later,
That was this group.
and the economic wheel is turning around us, that sometimes those businesses don't necessarily work anymore in today's environment. Some do, some don't. But we have to be able to shift and adjust with that. But the point overarching is you set out a plan to do something and you have been successful in it. Mr. Coops, I'm glad you brought up Steelcraft. Actually, we've been in a lot of conversations with Martin from Steelcraft about exactly how we can accomplish something like Ray's talking about, to say, hey, we need the businesses on the boulevard to buy into this, and how do we get someone out there making that sales pitch to them on a regular basis of, if you're going to be successful in this area, we all have to be successful and we all have to work together. Someone that's not necessarily the city saying you should do this, it's a third party saying it. I'm a business owner, I'm part of this downtown area, and we should do this together. That's something that an economic development corporation can go bring in that person. Sure, we could contract with somebody as the city and go bring that person in to do that. But an economic development corporation coming in and saying, we should all band together and do this, and having that person making that sales pitch on a day-to-day basis rings with an entirely different tone than the city government coming in and doing it. So your point is very well taken.
No, and that's my concern. It was such the best night we had was when the pharmacist, the Korean pharmacist, I'm coming to Bellflower. We're going to open up on that corner. I mean, I'm not, I'll be fine.
It's
I've got a medic across the street. We've talked. We're competitors, but we have our own separate kinds of clientele. I mean, that was so cool. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. But at the same time, you got to be realistic about this internet. When my wife orders a purse at 9 o'clock on Sunday night and Monday morning at 8 o'clock, it's on the front porch. How do you compete with that?
And that's part of why you're seeing different types of uses within our downtown area. Service uses, the Pilates studio.
Well, and that's why I think the comic book guy does fine, because you can't do that as possibly on the internet because he's hands-on. But, services,
your coffee shops are doing spectacularly.
Right.
The new coffee shop in Steelcraft doing great. Part of the reason for that, I would argue, is because you have 91 units of housing straight
It's
across the
housing.
street.
We need
Built-in customers straight across the street. And we watch people walk across the street. We watch people come over from the Pilates studio, which is a service use, walk over and get a coffee when they're done.
and what's interesting, that coffee shop's been there since day one when Steelcraft opened. And whatever, the quality went up and the price went down.
It
changed.
And it worked.
changed
It changed.
to its demographic.
From solid coffee to
But,
something else.
but I
changed.
mean, it was it was
Different
overnight.
Yeah. Well, basically, they did what the former one couldn't do. It switched to its to grab the attention of the market.
Okay.
Right? They did a real market analysis. They understand that the demographic is a Latino base, and they're serving Latino-based coffee. And
They're standing in line for it.
people are standing in line for it.
And that's where, if we had, again, with what we're talking about with this new committee, if there was someone that could show these retailers where they can be a benefit to town and their own pocketbook, here's what you do. Now, I love the entrepreneurial thing that Jim and we've all been a part of that, but it hurts me to see how many of them aren't utilizing that in Bellflower.
Sure.
I really don't need to promote retailers in Anaheim. That doesn't really pick up the speed. And I don't know how you say to them, you can enroll in it, but you have to use your skills that you've been taught in the city. We paid for it.
Well, we encourage them.
I encourage
Every
Well, the stats
graduation,
said we
that
had
was the
42 of the
message.
80.
Yeah.
And then the other ones went belly up.
Right.
That's what the stats said. That we did pretty good.
Well, I think overall, I mean, not every business will be successful. Let's face it. Some will fail. I mean, that's natural.
And some
I
are
think we-
exploring whether they want to
And
do
we
it.
just need to keep exploring
Right.
different things.
Right.
No, and I think everybody thinks the small mom and pop stores are all getting rich until they, look at.
No.
Now,
But that's the niche. Amazon can't compete with that.
No.
The experience, right? The service in the sense of the coffee, the empanada, the food, the sit down environment, letting your kids be able to run around and play. That's what retail is going to be moving forward. The old traditional,
barbershop,
the
nail
barbershop,
nail salons, all
even
these
the
kind of
barbershop
things,
and nail salon. Those are all they can't go away, and that's why we have more of those actually.
And we're really not looking at it as a income producer.
Oh,
That's
you mean for the city's perspective?
exactly.
It's not. It's not.
No, it's more of a feel-good thing, isn't it?
Well,
It's more
it
about
creates
quality of life.
jobs. It brings them to the city.
You bring
To-
business
to
to the
buy
city and they
something.
spend
So
money.
it's
You have
still-
people, and that's where the economic
Well,
development
a good
comes from.
example is let's talk about the UPS store, downtown Bellflower. It's not a revenue generator, but it will bring people to downtown Bellflower who say, "Oh, there's a coffee shop here. Oh, there's something here." So they're being forced to come to Bellflower, to downtown Bellflower.
And I guess part of it is if we're, gold property is a perfect example. You've messed with that thing for years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing we can do to promote them to go quicker. And then you find what's happened with
Taking
Kmart.
property tax.
Yeah, and Kmart's been sitting there empty for 10 years.
That's saying
And
it.
people have been criticizing us all this time, and now they're working on it haphazardly, I guess. I mean, it doesn't look like they're going as quick as the one that's being located on Clark and Rosecrans. But I don't know if we would ever have the chance to be able to build into a reward of some sort for getting these things done. Maybe I'm thinking off track here, but do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm just trying to compare that with, let's say, the new McDonald's on Alonzo and McNabb.
Right, they're pretty.
It's up to the owner. He wants to get it finished, and he's working on it real fast.
Right.
Anyway,
The new pharmacy, same thing. They
Same
went
thing,
very
yeah.
quickly.
Oh, the one we talked about on Maple Street?
Over here,
Yeah.
down
Okay,
on
yeah.
Bellflower.
so
So it
So
says
what-
here,
so what do
the
you want
city's
from-
economic development priorities. That's what we're supposed to be talking about.
right, exactly. So what do you want from the council for today?
So the primary goal
Let's-
of today was discussion. The
Okay.
big ask for you is which of those two, it sounds like you're leaning towards an EDC versus the Community Development
Oh,
Corporation.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the
Yes.
consensus we can hear.
If that's the
Has more
case,
horsepower.
Jim, step in if you need to, but I would suggest that the thing we need from you is, number one, direction to proceed in drafting those documents, and number two, if you want us to do that, perhaps establish a subcommittee of you all to sit and work with Jim and Carl and I as we craft that so that we can hash through the pros and cons of some of those question marks before you of how you'd like to structure that thing. What it's
I have a
intended.
suggestion before we do that. Can we
Certainly.
get more information about the success of EDC so that we can form a committee after that?
Certainly, I mean,
Can
we
we
can
do that?
We can
Because
do
I
that
don't
and bring that to that
I don't have
committee
a
if you'd
good
like.
feel in terms of what will it accomplish
Mhm.
at this point. I don't. So
If we could even just do the marketing, help promote the market of the downtown,
Yeah,
I
but-
think, in
but-
my
but
opinion,
that's
that would
one
be a
of-
big win.
it's just one of them.
Yeah,
I
but
just want to get.
I know.
I just want to wrap my hands about this is gonna bring things to Bellflower. These are the things that can possibly come to Bellflower because of this.
Why don't we
It could
do
be
it
one
as
of them.
why don't we do it as a subcommittee so we don't slow it down and then bring it back as a full report?
Yeah, I mean, I can bring those things to a subcommittee. We can bring that back as a presentation item to the council. What I would
Can.
offer you is your Economic Development Corporation can be as much or as little as you want it to be.
You can be a financing authority too.
Yeah, you have a financing
That's-
authority.
There's
The-
a lot of stuff in this thing that you can use to build, 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 to bu entities that come to town, the money and finance stuff. There's just so a world of. That's why I brought up, the bid thing.
The bid, yeah, right.
It's an entity that you can, help jumpstart bigger things and bigger projects.
It can purchase and own properties for economic development purposes that where we have learned when we're doing things like housing projects, if we want to have some guidance over that project as it goes forward, sometimes we need to have a piece of that. The Economic Development Corporation can play that role. So if a business wants to come to town, it can participate in that transaction and own that property and then flip it to a developer to be used for something. It can be as much or as little, and my suggestion would be that probably the examples you're going to find, Glendale, for example, wasn't using it, and therefore it was dissolved. But that doesn't mean the tools weren't there to be used if they wanted to use them.
So I guess my question is, how much time would you need to kind of come up with that kind of research study? Will it take a long time?
No, I don't expect it would
Okay.
take long. And the drafting of the documents, I mean, you're drafting articles of incorporation and operating agreements. It's stuff that Carl's team, I would expect could draft relatively quickly for us. The question becomes, the devil is in the details of how you want to structure it. Think of the JPA that we just established with Paramount and Lakewood. The back and forth of how we wanted to structure that entity, its own separate, political entity, that
Took 6 months
yeah, that process took some doing to decide how we wanted to do
because we're
this.
sharing money.
In this
It's a
case,
little more complicated.
in this case, it's a little bit quicker because it's
It's our money.
ostensibly only
Yeah,
you
it's
guys.
only- you only have
At
to
least
ask
for now.
permission from yourself.
So that process could be relatively quick, but those decision points still need to be made. So a subcommittee could help us do that. I mean, we can bring it to you for discussion if you'd like, but certainly a subcommittee would be helpful. And I'm happy to do that research and bring
But
it
I
back to
just
the full council if that's what you'd like.
Floated idea when this came out because there's something that was in the agenda that caught my eye, and we've always heard the term Melrose, and and that's when
That's more housing.
you have well, it's for the sidewalks and the public. So a big developer, and then I'm not saying it's going to come to town, but Melrose is the developer sets aside property,
Right.
bonds on it, and the people pay it back. And that's an entity that the economic EDC can control. That's another tool.
Right.
You
it's
can
a-
put that on small projects. It don't have to be a whole city. It don't have to be blocks and stuff.
Right.
But you can do that. Hey, you know what? We need to fund a public safety building. And we got more housing coming in. We got whatnot. We need to fund that. You can kind of bond for that for the future public safety building for public safety. There's so many different ways that you can use this. That's just one tool that just popped in my head. But there's certain things, there's all infrastructure fees that we have. We have the Parks and Rec fees and all that. That's taken care of. But there's just certain things. It's just a tool. I'm not saying just do that. I'm just saying that that's another tool that this entity can help nurture and do things. There's a lot of tools in the toolbox.
And there's just like, for example, the lighting district's an
Yeah,
example.
well, that's
Another example.
that came up in the conversation.
Yeah,
and
okay.
right-
So,
Ron-
I mean, there's
it
so
was
many
just-
tools
yeah,
that we can use. So.
yeah. So it's an interesting concept.
Okay. All right. Any other thought?
Staff okay with what we've done?
If you'd like us to do some of that research and bring you back on an EDC specifically, bring you a smaller
A
conversation
small
more
presentation
dedicated
before
to
the during
exactly
a
to
council
those.
meeting agenda. I
And
think
maybe,
we can do that.
maybe we can do it on a regular agenda,
Okay.
and we'll bring you some specific examples of what we think it could do in Bellflower,
Right.
even
And then
if
we
they're
can
not.
decide in the subcommittee
Some
after that.
ideas,
Yeah.
okay.
And we'll just bring you a smaller conversation
Right,
just for that
exactly,
purpose.
exactly.
Certainly.
More focus on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we'd also like some direction on the corridor studies and make sure that you're okay with the direction that we've presented to you and that we can go forward with those.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay. You mentioned, I'm sorry, man.
Sure, go ahead, go ahead.
You mentioned that we picked somebody to do a quarter study. Is that what I saw on the chart here? Or you
No,
said?
we have a group of firms that were ready to send
Okay,
the
first
RFP
for-
out.
Okay,
They're gonna
for
select-
proposal.
they're gonna select
Submit
firm.
okay, you have a menu list for research for proposal.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay, got
we've
it.
prepped an RFP,
That's-
and we're just asking you your permission to let us.
Didn't you want to drop one of the thoroughfares?
Yes, we wanted to go with the three major thoroughfares of Artesia, Lakewood, and Alondra, and then include like intersections that aren't included in those major corridors.
So Rosecrans will not be part of that study?
Rosecrans would not be part of it as a whole, but intersections along Rosecrans would be.
And
There's a lot of residential.
And Woodruff
And
also
Woodruff as
included.
well.
Okay, that's fine.
Jim,
I'm
allow me
okay
to
with
clarify.
that.
Well, Wayne Brown's family wants to sell that big project. That's
Oh.
Rosecrans. Keep that in mind.
Yes, we would start with Artesia from the west
Right.
boundary to Bellflower Boulevard.
So just to clarify, the RFP that we've prepared focuses on the Artesia corridor to start with.
From the,
Based
Start
off of
small.
today's direction.
from the Paramount border all the way to Bellflower. correct?
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
Oh, that's Paramount. I know. Okay. Oh, that's right.
Do one at a time,
So
yeah.
the idea being, east of Bellflower Boulevard, a lot of development has happened, and it's sort of taking on its life in some capacity. West of Bellflower Boulevard is stagnant, to put it nicely, in need of some changes, I mean, realistically.
And the scope would be such that when they were done with that, they'd go on and move on to the other ones.
Okay, yes, that's fine, that's good.
But Artesia, as you mentioned, is probably one of our more heavily blighted thoroughfares.
It's-
And that's where you would start,
It'd be
correct?
challenge, yeah. That would be
That- I mean,
challenging.
it could help a little.
Correct.
We needs help.
Yeah.
Well, we also have the Artesia specific plan as part of that, correct?
That is probably in that area, and
It
that's
is in
something
that
that we
area.
would be working on with
Right.
planning to evaluate the West Artesia specific plan and modernize it or even take it away. That's got to be evaluated as well. Maybe not exactly part of this corridor study, but in conjunction with it.
Okay. I think we were in the planning commission when we established the Artesia specific plan. Right? Do you remember
Well,
that?
the medians were in. then.
You
Yeah.
were, maybe.
No, you were. We were.
We were?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we
Remember-
altered it. We
remember,
altered it,
remember
yeah.
the long
Yeah,
meeting?
yeah.
Into the- it's a-
Then
No,
we
we were
all-
looking
then
for
we
the
put an
cannon
overlay on
lights.
it.
Remember? Where are our lights?
All right. Are we clear in terms of direction?
I think
Anything
we
else?
have our direction.
That does it for us. I think we can get going on some things.
Okay.
Hey,
Very good.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
this is one of your better presentations. Good job.
Oh, thank
Wow.
you.
Oh.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thought? Okay. With that, this meeting is now adjourned.